we're going to be talking about how you can use other people's money, and not only that, but in what circumstances you're going to be using other people's money and the legalities of it. So what type of legal documents will you need to use? Okay, so let's assume we're going to take different scenarios. When you are going to use other people's money, that means that you're going to do either one of those two things. You either are going to flip or you're going to rent. So it's going to be a fix and flip or a rental, right? Now the question is, will you be able to use other people's money in both exit strategies? Yes, the answer is yes. Now, when it comes to money, you have multiple sources of funding, okay? But we're going to focus on the most important ones that are going to help you leverage from other people's money. And then we're going to cover what it takes for you to get funding from other people, okay? So first of all, in either one of these two strategies, you have to close on the property. You're going to need to use either, these are the two options for funding when it comes to purchasing properties, to utilize other people's money, hard money lenders and private money lenders, okay? So you have two options, hard money and private lenders, okay? Now, what's the difference and which way should you go? It's very simple. These two are asset-based. So the hard money lenders are big institutions. Like Marlon was saying, she was using Renovo. So it's a very big institution, partner capital, constructive loans, and many more, okay? And then the second one are private money lenders. Those are individuals. That's the big difference. So you have institutions versus individuals. They both have money. Now, which one is going to better support your growth? Hard money lenders, okay? Why? Because they have an abundance of funding for you. So they can fund multiple deals, whereas a private money lender may not have the funds to support your growth. Now, in private money lending, it's relationship-based. It's who you know. The individual that knows you, that understands your track record, understands what you're trying to do, and trusts you, okay? So this one has always been more challenging, using other people's money. Because it's like, what came first, the egg or the chicken, right? You're in a catch-22. If you're a newbie, how can you get somebody to lend you money, right? It's a little bit of a challenge if you don't have a track record to borrow money from a private money lender. So how do you get around that? Okay, we're going to talk about that in just a second. And then hard money lenders. We just mentioned a few large institutions. The requirements are going to be different from both of them, but I'm just going to share with you the commonalities. So the interest rate is going to be anywhere between 10 to 12%. The term is going to be anywhere between 6 to 12 months. And the points to get the loan, it's average, I would say, 2 points, origination. So if you borrow $100,000, they're going to charge you $2,000 when you close. It's going to be a 6 to 12 month term, and then they're going to charge you about 1% per month. So if you borrow $100,000, then they are going to charge you $1,000 every single month, just interest only, okay? These loans are short-term interest only. They call them rehab loans. Now, the ones, it has pros and cons. So the pro of the hard money lender is that they can support your growth, okay? They can lend you for X number of properties. These private money lending won't. And then as far as paying for the property and rehabbing, which one is better, the hard money lender or the private money lender? Okay, hard money lender will have you have skin on the game, so they're gonna fund for the purchase. So you have, let me make sure I have enough room. So I'm gonna have purchase and rehab. Okay, so they're gonna fund 90% and 100%. So 90% of the purchase, that means that you're going to need to put down 10% and then 100% of the rehab. So let me give an example. If the property that you're buying is 100,000 and the rehab is 50,000, right? How much will you get from a hard money lender? You're gonna get 90% of 100,000, 90,000 plus 50, 140. So you're gonna get a loan for 140,000 from a hard money lender. Now the private money lender can give you 100% of the purchase and the rehab. So in this case, you're gonna get a loan for 150,000 from a private money lender. So which one will you have more leverage with? For sure, the private money lending, okay? Now, but they're comparable. What's the biggest difference once you decide to go with the hard money lender? They're primarily, I would say, two big differences. Number one, with the hard money lender, they won't give you 100% or the 50,000 upfront for the rehab. They are going to do that in installments based on the progress of the rehab. So they won't just give you 50,000. No, they're going to have you do or have milestones, and based on the milestones, they're going to release the money. So once you complete milestone one, let's say demo and structure, for instance, boom, they'll release a portion.
Hugo, you're on mute.
Lost your
Can you
sound.
hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Thank you. So with private money lenders, they're going to give you all the money up front, $150,000 up front, okay? So I love that because then you don't have to put any money out of pocket. Whereas with the hard money lender, the issue is with the rehab, right? Because they won't give you the 50,000. It's based on the milestones. That's the main difference. And also, when it comes to appraisals, the hard money lender will require an appraisal, whereas the private money lender will not require an appraisal. Okay, that is why private money lenders, it's based on trust, relationship. Okay, they need to understand your track record, your exit strategy. So those are the main differences between the private money lenders and hard money lenders. My favorite is private money lending. Okay, we started with hard money lenders, but we're moving towards private money lending. Leveraging from our relationships to borrow money, 100% of purchase and 100% of rehab. Now, the question is, if you don't have a track record, right? How are you going to get around the issue of trust if you are a brand new investor, right? Even though they're both asset-based and they need to make sense money-wise, either for a flip or a rental, the way to get around that is to make them equity partners on the transaction, okay? So let me give an example. If they give you a loan for 150,000 for 6 months, they're gonna be making 1,500 every single month. That means that in 6 months, the private money lender is going to make $9,000, okay? So again, they're gonna make $9,000 interest only, okay? If they give you 150,000 for 6 months, they're gonna make 9,000. So what if you're a beginner, you make them equity partner on a flip, for instance? So you're gonna tell them, I've got a great deal, you give me the money, I fix up the property, and then when we sell it, we go 50-50. So now, if this property, let me tell you, once you fix it up, so all in is 100 plus 50, 150. So the ARV of this property will end up being somewhere in the $200,000. How much will you make on the flip? Okay, typically you make 20% on the flip. So 20% of 200,000 is 40,000. If you split that into two, it's 20,000 each. Think about this. So if you offer a private money lender 20,000 versus 9,000, which one would it be more appealing? It's a no-brainer, right? They're gonna go for the equity, double their money. So when you do an equity partnership, they won't charge you interest. It's going to be a zero interest loan, but you've got to give up 50% of the profit. But as I like to say, I'd rather have 25% of something than 100% of nothing, right? So if you're a newbie, to get around, right, the trust issue with a private money lender, you've got to start giving up equity, right? Do 50-50 on the deal. They're going to be incentivized because they will for sure make sure that the numbers make sense. But again, it's a big incentive because they're going to double, triple their money when they give you the money. So again, that's a way to work around when you're a newbie and you want the money and you want everything, the purchase and the rehab. So I know that a lot of investors start doing wholesaling because they say, well, I need to build up reserves before I can flip or rent. It's a myth, right? You don't need to do that. You can jump right away into flips and rentals if you're willing to give up 50% of the equity on a flip. And again, wouldn't you rather take 50% of 40,000 than 100% of nothing? Of course, right? It's a no-brainer. So my advice is for everyone to start doing equity partnerships on flips. Not only will you use other people's money, but you will also minimize the risk, okay? That's huge when you are partners with a capital individual, okay, for that. Now, for a rental, right? If you are planning on keeping the property for a rental, if you're going to do a rental, then the equity partnership does not apply because you are not actually selling the property, okay? And you don't want to have a partner on a rental, right? Because a rental is a long-term investment. So you want to pay interest for the money you borrow short-term. And then once you stabilize the property, meaning you bought it for 100, you put in 50,000, now the property is worth 200,000. So you finish the rehab, you're gonna rent it. Now it's time to pay off the expensive money. You don't wanna have these for longer than 6 months, okay? So at this point, once you have a tenant in your rental, you can refinance. What it means is that you're gonna pay off the expensive money and turn the rehab loan into a long-term rental loan. Okay, so now instead of being 10%, 6 months, 2 points, it's going to be 5.5%, 25, 30-year amortization, and maybe 1 point. Okay, so by doing that, you are going to pay off the expensive loan and you're going to end up with equity on the deal. So when you refinance, meaning pay off the expensive loan, the short-term loan, banks are going to give you 75% of the after repair value. So what's 75% of 200,000? It's 150,000. So you will be able to pay the money that you borrow from the hard money lender or the private money lender and then end up with 25% equity on the back end, which is a requirement, right? So in a nutshell, you will have only the down payment of 10% stuck in the property. So you will only have about 10,000 stuck in the property. Now, if the property appraises for more than 200,000, that's when you start recycling money, because then when you refinance, you can do a cash out refinance. So let's assume the property appraised for, let's say, 250. So you can tap into 75% of 250. So what's 75% of 250? That's going to be 150. That's going to be, let me see, 75 times 250. It's going to be 187,000. Okay, so think about this. You're going to pay off 150 plus some carrying cost, the cost of money, and then you still have about $37,000 if the property was to price for $250, right? It's uncommon, but I just want you to understand that you're going to be able to cash out. So what we typically like to do, even if we have more room, we like to cash out in such a way that not only are we able to have zero money on the deal, meaning get 10,000 out of the deal, but maybe a little bit more, maybe another 10,000, so that we can leverage that money for the next deal. Does that make sense? So you end up with zero money on the deal and then get money out of the equity when you refinance. So that's how you can recycle money. And if you're a newbie, to get in the game of building trust and creating relationships, you've got to do JVs, joint ventures, giving up 50% of the deal, of the profit. Now, what is it that when you do a joint venture, what does that mean? Let's say that Marlon and I are going to do a joint venture. It's very simple. You need to do a flip or a rental. It's a 5-piece puzzle, okay? So what are the 5 pieces of the puzzle? You have, let me remove the terms, and then I'm going to give you the 5 pieces of the puzzle. Number 1, you need the deal. Number 2, you need the money for the purchase. Number 3, you need the money for the rehab. Number 4, you need to do the rehab. And number 5, you need to sell the property, okay? So those are the 5 pieces of the puzzle. Now, who's gonna do what on the JV? Because the joint venture specifies what each individual is going to do and how you're gonna split the profit. So you want to leverage from other people's money. So think about this. You don't want to put any money out of pocket. So you want your capital investor to put the purchase and the rehab. What are you going to do? You're going to need to do the other 2 pieces. You need to come up with a deal, and you need to manage the rehab. So you need to bring the contractors and manage the full rehab. Now, the sale of the property, that's the easy part, right? You can get any broker to sell the property. They'll be happy to sell the property. So this is the easy piece that you don't need to worry about. So all you need to worry about is bringing the deal and making sure you have good contractors that do quality work, stay on their budget, and do it on a timely fashion, okay? That's critical. And in exchange, you're gonna get the money for the purchase and the rehab. Now, when you put these together, right, because the objective is to synergize, right? Leverage from each other's strengths. So your strength, you need to become really good at bringing the deal and managing the rehab, okay? And then let me give you a hint, okay? A lot of people, they get hung up on managing the rehab, right? But let me tell you the truth about that. You know, working with contractors is the biggest headache, okay, of investors, because they are unreliable, they do poor quality, they take their sweet time to finish it, so they drag the project. It could be a deal breaker, right? They can make you lose money. So the key is to work with reliable contractors, and you technically shouldn't need to manage the project. Listen to what I just said. You should not manage the project. Let me put it in simpler words. You should not babysit contractors, okay? You're not a babysitter, okay, of anybody. That's the key, okay? So the key is to get really good contractors that you can hand out the key and then they can run with the project, okay? Obviously, at the beginning, it's going to take some time, but you need to get into the habit of not babysitting contractors. You need to let them run with the project. You need to empower them to make decisions. And what's super important when dealing with contractors, you always want to only pay for labor, okay? You always want to control materials. You never want them to bring in the materials because you don't know the quality they're going to bring. You do not control the returns on used material. What happens to that? If you buy the material, you're going to get credit for that from the supply store, and you don't want to overpay for materials. So you've got to control the materials. All you want is for them to do labor and for them to give you a quote of their labor. That's it. Okay, and you need to hold them accountable for the time frame. That is very critical because there are two types of contractors that like to take on so many projects, right? And they drag every single project forever, or the ones that like to get paid very fast. So they put a lot of people into one project, they get it done, and they move on to the other one so they get paid quicker. Because think about this. Assuming that you are a contractor, put yourself in their shoes. If you take 5 projects, when are you going to finish all 5 projects? You're going to drag them all. When are you going to get paid? In 5 months. But if you put all your resources into one project at a time, guess what? You're going to finish them quicker and get paid sooner. Those are the contractors that you want to work with, okay? So like, we closed on a property about, I would say a week and a half ago. I said, this is the lockbox, run with it. I don't want to choose light fixtures. I don't want to choose plumbing fixtures. I don't want to, not even the flooring. I just want to make sure that it's waterproof, lifetime warranty, run with it. Paint, just go with the trending colors, gray, light gray. That's about it. Tile, backsplash, all of that, you pick it, okay? Just go with what's trendy. And obviously, we've been working with these contractors for quite some time, so they know us. But I won't stop by the property to check on them or babysit them. No, let them run with the project. Once it's finished, then at that point, I will go see the project, okay? But even before then, I want them to send me pictures. Hey, can you send me some pictures? And that's about it. So the key is to not babysit contractors. If you're babysitting contractors, guess what? You're working with the wrong contractor. You've got to let them run with the project. And now the key is that you have to give them a small project. If you're going to work with somebody new, small projects. Like for instance, we just did a kitchen about 2 weeks ago in Wheeling Condo. I just gave them the kitchen. This is a new contractor. I was not happy with it. I mean, to begin with, I mean, I got a great deal money-wise, but he ended up buying the materials, which I don't like, because guess what? When contractors buy materials, they need money, right, for the materials. So they're going to want you to pay them 50% up front. I don't like that. I want to pay them always in arrears for their labor. I want to pay for materials using a credit card, a business credit card. So I leverage again from money, because that's something very, very important, guys. Oftentimes investors disregard leveraging from other people's money, meaning business credit cards to pay for materials. That is why you don't want to work with contractors that are going to buy the materials, because that forces you to pay them cash, right? Zelle them money for them to buy the materials. So you never want to do that. In this case, I think he charged about $7,200, including labor and materials. I mean, it was very, very, very reasonable to do the kitchen, the flooring, the paint, and fix a door. Okay, so it was very, very, very competitive. I just wanted to test the contractor, but they took longer than what they needed to take. The quality was just okay. I was not impressed. The tenant was not 100% happy with the interaction. I mean, they came and sometimes they worked for a couple of hours. They came back the next day. Something that could have been done in a week and a half took 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. That's unacceptable. Are we going to use them again? Absolutely not. Okay, maybe for handyman type of jobs, right? When you're going to do flips and rentals, you never want to use a handyman, because a handyman is not licensed. They don't know the code. They're gonna drag. They're most of them are not punctual, right? So handyman, they have their weaknesses. You want to work with licensed contractors, because for these type of projects, guess what? Oftentimes you're gonna need to pull permits for electric, plumbing. So you do want to work with licensed contractors when it comes to rehabbing. Okay, like this property that we're doing, there's a plumbing permit that needs to be pulled. So we cannot use handyman on these type of projects, because they cannot pull a permit. They don't have a license. They need to be registered with the village. So I went a little bit deeper on the rehabbing, because I oftentimes see that people get stuck and make a lot of mistakes in this really critical piece of the equation. Okay, so again, working with contractors, only pay for labor, you control materials, you never pay them up front, except there are exceptions. Okay, if you're gonna use a contractor for windows or for kitchen cabinets, you're gonna need to pay 50% upfront and 50% once they deliver the windows or the kitchen cabinets. But if they're just going to, let's say, redo the bathroom, it's gonna take maybe a week and a half. Half the way through the milestone, you can pay them, but based on progress. You never wanna pay them upfront. Why? If you don't know them, they can run away and you have no recourse. You're gonna lose your money. So always pay in arrears. Once the job is completed, then you pay them off completely. And make sure that you always have them sign a lien waiver. Super important. Hard money lenders are gonna require you to have them sign a lien waiver. That means that it certifies that you've paid them off and they won't come back and file a mechanic's lien on the property, okay, for unpaid bills. So super important, always have them sign a lien waiver once they complete the project. So that's, yes.
So with your contractor that
Yes.
you use, or all your contractors, are you signing contracts with all of them?
No, not at all.
So what
Because
happens
of the-
if you're using somebody new and you agree to terms and they don't fulfill it and you fire them in the middle of the project? How do you handle that situation?
So why would you fire them? Because they are not, because they're behind schedule, or because the poor quality, or why would you fire them? Like, give me an example.
Oh, let's just do the example of, for instance, you go through, you agree upon whatever, they give you a quote, you tell them exactly what you're looking for, and I'll give you, it's a situation I ran into. Hired a contractor to do a major remodel, and they went through the process, and we agreed upon everything. I bought all the materials, they were supplying the labor. So as they were going, I was paying them as they were going. What ended up happening halfway, not even halfway through, but about a quarter of the way through the project, they're making some progress, but then something happened, whatever, family-wise with them, and then they started dragging. And then I felt that they took on too much work elsewhere, so they weren't coming consistently. And we had an agreement to when the deal was going to be, when they were supposed to be complete. They never complete, well, they kept dragging. And then afterwards, they had a situation where like, oh, it's so far for me to travel, they wanted to stay in the unit. I said, I'm not game with that you need to travel every day, come back and forth. But then at the end there, the guy actually started staying in the place. And I said, look, fine, if you have 2 weeks left, which we agreed upon, he told me he needed 2 weeks and he's done. And it dragged on for almost 6 weeks, or actually almost 8. And then I just got fed up with him because he was only working on the place like once a week. Then I fired him and gave him notice that because I extended his timeline 3 times, and then finally said, you know what, just pack your tools, see you later. I paid you for your time, and now I'm having an issue with them, and they're trying to come back after me, saying that they completed all the work. They didn't complete the work. I had to hire other people along with myself to go in and finish the job.
Right. So what are they after right now? Are they trying to file a mechanic's lien?
Payment. They want the full payment for the work as if they completed it. they're telling me a story that they completed the work, and I'm like, because evidently they must be following like Redfin or whatever I'm advertising, or Zillow, and they see I'm renting the place, so they think they see the place is rented. And I'm like, you know what? They wouldn't return phone calls, they wouldn't whatever. So I basically told them when he parted ways, I paid him the remaining balance to what he did, and he's asking for additional monies that are not, that he did not earn.
Right. So in this case, a good thing to do is take pictures of the progress, especially when you let them go. Make sure that, boom, you take pictures so you document what they've done.
I have all of that already. Yeah.
Perfect. And then with the new contractor, you have a contract, something in writing, so that you can prove that they did not complete the job. So you can ignore them. They will not file a mechanics lien. I mean, they're just trying to get extra money from you, but they won't file a mechanics lien.
Okay.
And mechanics lien is not a big deal because guess what? They have we've had a webinar on mechanics lien with Gary Davidson. You have pretty much 30 days to file a response to a mechanics lien to try to dismiss it, okay? And they need to take it to the next level. In other words, they will need to foreclose on the property for the mechanics lien to stay in place. And they won't do it unless it's for a big amount, like maybe over 20, 30,000. But if it's not the case, then it's going to be a lot more expensive to try to follow through the mechanics lien in a foreclosure proceeding. It's going to cost them over 10,000, 10, 15,000. So they won't pursue that. So a lot of contractors try to intimidate landlords with mechanics liens, but they're not a big deal. But as long as you document, you're going to be okay. Just ignore them.
I also have that, and I also have all the emails and text messages where asking him for pictures of updates on what he did. He ignored every single text and email because he wasn't doing any work. And I actually went there and took pictures because there was no response to see what progress was made, and then just documented no progress was made and sent him the pictures of no progress made. But now he's coming back at me trying to stick me with a large bill, which he didn't do the work for. So I also felt that I didn't owe him anything, but I just wanted to get your opinion on what
just ignore them. Just ignore them. Don't even waste your time. Just ignore them. Block them from your phone. Don't reply to your emails. I mean, they won't get anywhere.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, no, ignore them. No problem.
Yeah, I do those lien waivers every time you give them money anyway, because that document's right there on that paper what you're paying them for and what work has been done, along with the pictures.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. No, great point. But yeah, like for instance, I always like to try them out on small projects. That's critical. Like, the kitchen, it's not a big risk. I mean, they completed everything but the time frame. And we got a quote for this project that we started. So they said, yeah, we're gonna finish it by mid-January. They were gonna take 2 months. I was like, you've gotta be kidding me. This needs to be done in 3 weeks, 4 weeks max, and you're gonna take over 2 months. When I saw that estimate, I was like, forget it. I just wanted to test the waters. But anyway, so working with contractors, again, to do a JV, you've got to bring the deal and then bring a great contractor. Again, don't babysit contractors because you're not in the babysitting business. Just have one that will just run with the project. That's obviously challenging. So that's how you can structure these. We have the JV agreements. I'm going to show you where we have them for a flip. But that's how you can structure using other people's money and then filling the gap, right? So again, don't think that you need to start doing wholesaling because you don't have enough capital to invest in a property, like a flip or a rental. You can just jump directly into these. And even if you don't have a established relationship with somebody who has money, give up equity. Do a 50% equity split. They're gonna be super excited, right? Because they're gonna, instead of making 9,000, they could make way more than that. So that's just a better approach of leveraging from other people's money. And again, it's just an in and out, short term. Are there any questions so far?
Hugo, when
Yes.
you doing trying to get estimates to get your scope of work done up, and a lot of the contractors they ask you to pay them to to give you that estimate. I've been foregoing those, but I'm finding out that if you don't pay them, they take too long to give you the scope of work for your project after they came and walk the property.
To tell the truth, I've never encountered a contractor that would charge me to get a scope of work, because it's to their benefit to give you the scope of work, because they're going to be making money, so you shouldn't pay to get a scope of work. Not at all.
Okay.
No, because you also tell them, hey, listen, I belong to an investors organization, and if this works out between us, you're gonna get a lot more business. So you've got to leverage, right? Like in our case, for when we did the buy and bust tour, we're bringing GCs, inspectors, right? The inspectors stay with us for the entire day. How much would you pay for an inspector for the entire day, right? Just an inspection for 2 hours is $400. So imagine having them for 8 hours, yet we pay zero money. Why? Because of the leverage, right? We're going to say, hey, listen, Phil, Mike, we're going to give you a lot of business. You're going to get referrals. I understand your time is valuable, but at the same time, when we work together, you're going to get more business. You can play the same wild card with any contractor. Listen, I belong to an investors association, and if you do great quality work, you're going to get a lot of business from us. So don't only work as an individual, quote yourself as being part of a great group. Okay, that's going to give you leveraging, bargaining leverage when working with contractors. So again, never pay for an estimate, because that tells you that they're going to charge you an arm and a leg for just about anything they do on your project. That's just starting with the wrong foot. Does that make sense? So yeah, no, never pay for an estimate.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, are there any questions on the joint ventures and when you need to do them?
Hey, Hugo.
Yes.
This is a bit off topic, but I was just curious, something that came to mind as you were teaching. What do you fit depreciation into this equation, like especially when it comes to the rental properties? If you could.
Oh, depreciation. Well,
Right.
depreciation is the biggest tax benefit when you get into rentals, because you're going to be able to write off pretty much the lifespan of the entire rehab. So on a yearly basis, your accountant is going to be writing off all the expenses made for the enhancement of the property. So I'm glad you mentioned this, because this is how the wealthy become wealthier, right? They leverage from taxes, depreciation. So when they make $100,000, they get to keep $100,000. Yet somebody that is not in real estate, if they make $100,000, they pay Uncle Sam 35% of that. So depreciation is huge when you get into the rentals. But the accountant is going to take care of the depreciation for the property. But it's the biggest tax benefit. I'm seeing that, right? So with the rehabs we've done, with the purchases, my goodness, we get to keep everything we make on the rental side, right? So all the income with the depreciation gets offset, and then you get to keep what you make. So Uncle Sam gets very little. Obviously, as time goes on, the depreciation is less. So when you own a property for 25 years or so, depreciation is going to be almost zero. Okay, so you're going to take advantage of depreciation in the first 15 years of owning the property.
And that starts from the day you have it as a rental, or
Correct.
from the time when Okay. And
from
what's
the
the
day you
difference?
close on the property.
Okay. And so what's the difference between that and depreciation recapture?
Between debt.
Right.
Okay, so the debt, this is a good debt to have, okay?
Okay.
Because why would a rental be a good debt to have? Because you're not paying for it. Guess who's paying for it? The tenant is paying for your principal, interest, tax, and insurance, and on top of it, they're paying for the operating expenses, which are the utilities. They're paying for gas, electric, and water if it's a single-family home, okay? So it's a good debt, and that's where the wealthy put their money into, good debt. What's an example of a bad debt? A bad debt would be equivalent to a vehicle. Why? Because a vehicle depreciates in value, except for Tesla, right? Tesla appreciates, but if it's not an electric vehicle, it's going to depreciate. The minute you drive it off the parking lot or the dealership, it drops 20% in value. In the first 2 years, a vehicle drops 20% in value. So that's a depreciating asset. You want to invest in appreciating assets where the debt is good debt. For one, you're not paying for it. The tenant is paying for it. And not only that, but it helps you capture the depreciation benefit on your income taxes.
Okay. So you do consider that when it comes to the rentals, and as long as the numbers work, that's not a big deal to consider in terms
Yeah,
of the recap.
no, it's not a big deal. And
Okay.
most importantly, Emre, you want to buy these properties under your entity, your LLC or your S corp. Why? Because they will not show up on your FICO, on your personal credit report.
Right. Right. Okay.
So that's huge. It won't affect your debt to income ratio. So you're going to be looking really good on paper. That is why uh, you can buy 5, 10, 30, 40 rentals because they're not under your name. If you want to buy properties under your name, guess what? You're limited to 10 properties. I don't know a single investor who owns more than 5 properties in their personal name. Why? It is so difficult to go through underwriting under your personal name. They're going to ask you for the moon, the stars, and everything in between when it comes to documentation, right? From income taxes, bank statements, reserves, FICO score, track record, uh, you name it. Okay, so that is why you want to buy all these properties under your entity, so they are nowhere to be seen on your personal credit report, and you can do as many as you need using other people's money so that you can grow exponentially. Not only that, but the key is to recycle the money. How do you recycle the money? Making sure that you end up with 25% equity on the back end. It's a must. So the rule of thumb that I have when we analyze properties is from the purchase price, you've got to have $80,000 to $100,000 spread between the purchase price and the ARV. You see these? That's a rule of thumb. There's $80,000 to $100,000 spread, and the rehab should be less than $50,000. When you meet these criteria, thumbs up. You're gonna be in great shape. So, like for instance, we made an offer on Joliet property yesterday. It for 119. ARV is 223. You see the spread? The spread is over $100,000, and the rehab is less than 50,000. So, one of the conditions of the offer was to be cash. It's not a problem because guess what? If we want to buy that property, we can bring a private money lender, okay? Because there's enough equity, there's enough meat in the bone, right? Where we could do equity partnership, or if we're going to keep it as a rental, we just pay them interest on their money, okay? So it's super, super important to use this rule of thumb to have enough equity on the back end and be able to have a successful JV with either a private money lender, or if you're going to borrow the money and just pay interest, you can use a hard money lender. But the hard money lender has a little bit more requirements when it comes to the FICO score. They want you to have 680 and above. They want you to have enough reserves, at least 3 months of principal, interest, tax, and insurance, 3 to 6 months in reserves, plus the 10% down. So whereas the private money lender, you could have zero money in your bank account, and boom, they'll give you the money, or they'll wire the money to the title company. So great point, great question, Samurai.
Thank you for the answer and explanation. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, you mentioned that when it's a single family home, you should have the tenant paying for the electric and the gas and the water.
Absolutely.
I'm only doing electric and gas under Section 8. I thought, because they told me I need to keep the water under my LLC.
Mm.
Is that something that's common?
Well, Section 8 may have they may have different requirements. They may not want the tenant to pay for water. That's it. So we do have a Section 8 tenant, but it's in a 3 flat. So on a multi-unit, you always pay for water, common electric, and trash, and snow removal. You cannot expect the tenants to pay for that. But the rest of the asset type, if it's a single-family home, they should all pay for those 3 utilities: gas, water, and electric. But Section 8 may not allow them to pay for water. If that's the case, then you have no choice but to pay for it. But typically, when you have voucher holders, you know, they pay pretty good, very competitive rents. I love Section 8.
Okay.
There you go.
Hey, Sam.
What is the safest way to pay the contractor? Obviously, cash is not a good payment
No.
to prove to the court or anything. Just cash money or there, or Zelle payment, or that kind of stuff, right?
We don't like to do cash. Sometimes they've asked us to do cash. I never do that. It's a cashier's check. I like to do Zelle. On our checking accounts, we don't have a checkbook. I don't have checks, so we just do Zelle. Zelle, if they want cash, I won't do cash. We'll just do a cashier's check, because you need a trace of the money. If you go to the bank and withdraw cash, I mean, that money could be for you, right? Or
Yes.
you gotta do Zelle or cashier's check. That's it.
And
What is
then
Zelle?
for the protection of the both sides, is good to sign a contract at the beginning that what they are going to do exactly for 6,500, and if they didn't do it, then they know that they are in default.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions?
What is Zelle?
Zelle, it's the same as Quick Pay. It's just an electronic way of transferring money from one individual to another one, and typically that's done through your cell phone or your email. The email and or the cell phone is connected to your checking account, so that's how you can transfer money from person to person via this mechanism called Zelle or Quick Pay. Quick Pay is just the trademark from Chase, and Zelle is for most other banks.
All right, understood. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions?
Yeah, Hugo.
Yes, Ahmed.
For your first flip or two, should we use a general contractor, or kind of do it ourselves as far as getting electricians and things like that?
So the question is, should you become the GC or should you hire a GC?
Yes, that's the question, Hugo.
Oh, okay, so it depends on the rehab. If it's a light rehab where you don't need to pull too many permits, you could be sort of the GC. But if the rehab requires plumbing permit, electric permit, HVAC permit, window permit, roof permit, it's better to get a GC. And the GC can get subcontractors or himself, he can pull permits for all of them. So it depends on the permits that you have to pull for the project. Does it make sense? If you need to pull a lot of permits, it's just better to use a GC, because the village is going to ask you for a bond and insurance. And typically GCs carry that. And it's a very expensive insurance. If you want to become your own GC, first of all, you need to get a license to become a GC. So you've got to go to school, take lessons, and you've got to buy insurance for yourself. GC insurance is about $3,000 a year. It's very expensive. And the village is going to require you to have a bond and insurance, bonded and insured. So it's expensive if you want to become your own GC, but let me give you the workaround that, okay? The workaround that is to pull homeowner or owner's permits as if you claim to do the work. Does it make sense? So you could pull homeowner permit. Listen to this, okay? Very careful. So this is super important. You could go to the village and you can actually pull a homeowner permit to do electric work or to do plumbing work. So you don't need to be licensed per se, but that's going to depend on the village, okay? So let me give you an example. Elmwood Park. If you want to do plumbing yourself as the owner, they won't let you do plumbing or electric. They're going to say, Mr. Owner, even though you know how to do it per code, we won't allow you to do that. You've got to have a licensed plumber and electrician come to the village, pull the permit on your behalf. There are other villages like Bellwood. Bellwood, you can pull homeowner's permit for plumbing and electric. So you can say to the village of Bellwood, I'm going to do the entire electric system. I'm going to do the entire plumbing system. As the owner, even though you won't do it, they'll give you the permit. So it depends on the village. And Bellwood, it's a very tough village if you're going to pull permits with contractors. But for homeowners, it's like a loophole in the system. You can pull easily homeowner permits in the village of Bellwood. But many villages won't allow you to do plumbing or electric. They want you to have licensed electricians and plumbers to do it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Hugo.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, that's a loophole in many villages, homeowners permit.
Hugo, what is the common area that need permit? I mean, I know you mentioned plumbing and
Yes.
electric.
So let me tell
What
you.
else? Is
You need
changing the
permit.
cabinet also?
So let me tell you, when you close on the property, these are the things that you need to do. As soon as you close on the property, you need to turn on utilities, water, gas, electric to your name. You need to make sure that you have the right insurance. If you're going to do a rehab, you need vacant insurance policy. Once you rent the property, if it's going to become a rental, then you turn that vacant insurance policy into a landlord insurance policy, because it's cheaper to have a landlord than vacant. But if while you do the rehab, the property is vacant. So making sure that you have the right insurance. If you are going to keep it as a rental, make sure that you appeal taxes. So you need to engage a law firm that all they do is tax appeals, okay, to minimize your real estate tax bill. And before you start the project, you've got to check with the village, because when you do demo work, they're going to ask you for permits for the dumpster. So that's one of them, dumpster permit. You're going to need a permit for fences. You're going to need a permit for roofs, windows, electric, plumbing, HVAC. Some villages are going to require you to pull a permit just for remodeling. That's just a way for them to make money, a remodeling permit. So those are typically the 8 areas, and also porches. If you need like a deck or a porch, that needs a permit. And obviously bigger projects, like if you're gonna do additions, that requires blueprints. Many villages, even though you're doing remodeling, they're gonna have you submit blueprints. But again, dumpster, windows, decks, roof, fences, electric, plumbing, HVAC. Those are the 8 permits that you're going to need.
So the first insurance you mentioned is a vacant property insurance?
So like you're going to be doing a flip on your Palatine property, so you make sure that you have vacant property insurance. Yeah.
So in case the contractor caused a fire or any damage,
of course,
that will be covered.
Yes, and you pay your partner paid cash for these, right?
Yes.
Absolutely, he needs to be the beneficiary on the policy, because if the whole thing burns down and you don't have insurance, then tough luck. So insurance. You don't need to appeal taxes because you're gonna sell it. But yeah, make sure that you check with Palatine Village to see if you need those permits. Utilities.
Yeah, that's not very expensive insurance, right?
Vacant policy. So you have 3 types of insurance. The most expensive is the new development insurance, then vacant policy and landlord policy. Landlord is the cheapest, vacant more expensive, and new development is the most expensive. So and oftentimes they sell you new development when it's a vacant, when it should be a vacant. So be aware of the difference. You should have vacant.
Sounds good. Thank you.
No problem. So we have Diego on the line. So we have a JV. I have a JV with Diego on a condo in Schiller Park. Hey, Diego, are you able to speak?
Yes, I am.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so today's topic is on joint ventures. So can you quickly describe the type of JV that we have in place?
Yes, of course. So you brought the deal to me. It was a great deal. I funded the deal. We agreed that we are gonna, our goal will be to fix it and flip it. Okay. At the moment, we're not, we haven't been able to work on the property because the tenants are there. They didn't want to move out, but they are paying rent. So we are getting some cash flow now. So our goal will be probably to have them out, hopefully in the next couple of months, so we can repair pretty much rehab the unit and put it back on the market. So we agree on a JV agreement, like 50-50. So I put all the money in, and Hugo is the one managing the property.
Okay, guys. So did you hear that? Pretty much, Diego reiterated what I wrote on the board. I brought the deal. So the condo, we bought it for $80,000. The ARV on the condo is about $150,000. So we're paying like 55 cents on the dollar. The rehab is going to be about, I would say, $15,000 on the property. So Diego fill in 2 pieces of the puzzle, 2 and 3. He put the money for the purchase and the rehab. So he put 80,000 plus about 12, 15,000 for the property. We would do the rehab, but as he said, we were targeting to do a cash for keys. But we realized that the tenant said, we love this property because you know what? This was owned by the previous owner used to live in the property, so she did all the bells and whistles in the condo. So they love the property. They don't want to move out. But the problem is when we bought the property, they had not paid rent for the last 6 months. Okay, so Diego and I came up to the tenants and say, listen, we're buying the property. We need it vacant because we're gonna sell it, fix it up and sell it. We are going to give you cash for you to sell somewhere else. And they said, well, they were not convinced. They didn't sign anything. And they said, we're going to pay rent. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So they're paying rent. It's cash flowing, obviously, very nicely. They're paying $1,300 in rent. But again, the objective of the JV was to flip it. So now the problem is that they're paying rent on time. They typically pay on the 5th, on the 8th. It's cash flowing. So it's not so easy to get rid of them, right? So, and you want to do it in a nice way because you don't want them to not pay rent, right? So everything, and you don't want them to vandalize the property. So you want to make sure that you do this the right way. So now, what options do we have at this point? As Diego said, work with the tenants, hopefully to work an agreement for them to move out, or if not, Diego may say, hey, you know what, Hugo, I don't want to have my money tied up in this deal, right? Because he's got over 90,000, like 93, $95,000 stuck into this property, right? And when you do an equity partnership, there's no interest made on the money, right? Because he's going to get equity instead, like 50% of the flip, which is going to be way more than if he was to get interest. So what's the interest that he would be making? Let's assume he's got 100,000. Typically, he would make about $1,000 a month on interest in this type of deal if he was just lending the money. So we would be in and out in this transaction in about 4 months from the time you purchase, rehab, and sell it. So if we were to sell this property for 150,000, we would be making about 50,000. No, maybe probably all in would be 9110. So all in would be about 40,000 easily. 40,000 split into two, 20. So he's going to make 20,000 on a flip versus making 6,000 on interest only for his money. Does that make sense? So it's more appealing for somebody like Diego to make over 15, 20,000 than making 6,000. But this is the catch. Now the money is stuck in there. So what options do we have? Can anybody make a guess?
You could buy him out.
Exactly. Exactly. So the option that we have is to refinance the property and then for him to get paid, to get his money out of the deal. Now, let me ask you this. Whose name is on the property? Should it be Diego or should it be my name? Or does it make a difference?
Well, it's in your your LLC right now, right?
It's a question for you guys. So Diego
Both of it.
put the money for the purchase and the rehab. I brought the deal. Obviously, I would manage the rehab and I can sell the property. But the question is, whose name should be on the deed? Or does
The
it?
LLC with you guys both as mutual shareholders.
Okay. Who said that?
Jonathan.
Jonathan. Okay. Great point. Anybody else?
Well, since he's the purchaser, I would say him.
Okay.
Unless you buy him out.
Okay. Anybody else?
Could be either one of you in the beginning, and then it could be transferred to whoever was going to buy out the other.
Okay. The objective is to do the flip. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it matters, but I think based on what you taught us, the person who's putting the money in, they would have their name on it. However, in your case, if your name isn't on it, I don't think it matters.
Right. So you have two options. Okay. Jonathan gave one of the right answers. You create an LLC where you have Diego and my name on it. And that new LLC owns the property. Okay, that's one option. And the second option is for either him or me to own the property. Either it's did it on his entity or my entity. And we have a joint venture agreement stipulating who's going to do what and how we're going to split the proceeds. Now, which one is the right answer? I mean, both are correct. Now, which one is easier? The one that is easier is for the property to be deeded under either Diego's name or my entity, and then have a joint venture agreement on top of it, okay? Why? Because if Diego and I were to create an entity, guess what? That's overhead. You're gonna create an entity, you're gonna pay about $600 because you need to register the entity. You're gonna need to pay taxes on the entity, and then eventually you need to dissolve the entity if you're not gonna do any more deals together. So it's more overhead, it's more expensive, it's more time consuming. But there's nothing wrong with that approach, especially if you're gonna do more deals together. But if it's just the first one, what I recommend is to keep it simple. Don't complicate, don't overpay. Just get it deeded under either one of the members, and then have a joint venture agreement on it. Now, the property is deeded under my entity, which if, for instance, Diego wants me to buy him out, that's going to help, okay? Because we just need to do a refinance on the property because it's already under my name. So we're going to be saving money on closing costs. If the property was deeded under Diego's name and he wants his money out and I need to buy him out, it's not a refinance because I don't own the property. I would need to actually purchase the property, or he would need to do I would need to legally purchase the property, okay? Or he could do a quitclaim deed over to my entity, and then I would need to be able to do a cash out refinance to pay him off. So there are multiple options, but the easiest is the approach that we're taking. Right now, if he decides that he needs his money like right away, then all I need to do is refinance, okay? For him to get his money out like as soon as possible. So that's something that he's got two options. Does that make sense? Because that's going to come up in your JV, right? Who's going to have the deed of the property? It doesn't really matter, but let me tell you, if you're going to get a harmony lender into the picture, that's going to be important. If you get a harmony lender, then the person with the better credit and the person with the best track record should be on the deed. That's simple. Why? You're going to get funding, you're going to get better terms from the harmony lender. So the person with the better credit report or FICO and the better track record should own the property.
So Hugo, from my understanding, so after the person have it under their name, and then you're gonna come up with a new LLC for both of you guys. You're saying, correct?
No,
so you still have to
more
create a new one?
complicated. That's what Jonathan said. Jonathan said, create a new LLC and put Diego and my name in it. That's one option, but that requires overhead, right? And it's going to require an expense.
Yes.
Or just get it deeded under either his entity or my entity, and then put a joint venture agreement, like a 2-page contract stipulating responsibilities of each of the parties and or contributions, and then how you split the proceeds.
Gotcha. So, but you still have to come up with a new LLC for that, or no? For the new venture agreement?
No, you don't need one.
Okay.
So the property is under my name. If we're gonna do more deals together, eventually it would make sense to do that, because then that entity creates sort of like a track record for future deals. Yeah.
So
Okay,
if I already have an LLC and I joint venture with somebody, then I can just use the same LLC I got.
Exactly. Exactly. So in Diego's case, he's got an LLC. I have my LLC. In the joint venture agreement, party A is my entity, party B is his entity. So you can put your entity as part of the joint venture agreement. You don't need to create a brand new LLC because, again, you've got to pay taxes on it, you've got to incorporate. So there's a lot more involved.
No, because I was always told it's best to create a new LLC for each property.
No, That's a big mistake. So let me tell you, what are the benefits of owning a property under an LLC? There are 3 benefits. Okay, number 1, asset protection. Okay, if you buy the property under your name and somebody sues you because they fell on your property, man, that can wipe you out. Take out all your personal belongings. But if it's under your entity, you're protected. Your personal assets are protected. So asset protection, number 1. Number 2, for funding reasons, banks and Harmony lenders, especially Harmony lenders, are going to give you money under your entity, not under your name. Why? Because if you default on the payment, they can foreclose in as little as 6 months under your entity. If it's under your name, it can take up to 2 years. And number 3, for for tax depreciation purposes. So having the property under your entity makes sense for those 3 reasons. And then you should not create an LLC per property. That's a big mistake because, again, you're going to incur a lot of overhead. Think about this. If we have like 35 rentals, do you think we have 35 different LLCs, 1 per property? Yes or no?
No
Absolutely.
way.
Of course not.
No, because imagine, to file a tax return per property is going to be $400. So 35 times 400, I would be paying $14,000 just in tax returns for all those rentals. Imagine. So no, the rule of thumb is that you're going to be putting or dumping properties into an LLC. Once you reach about $500,000 in equity, then you can create another LLC. So it's equity driven. Okay, why? Because think about this. If you have 1 property in an LLC, but you have no equity in the property, if you were to lose that property, just like the collapse of the porch in Chicago, the owner had that building in 1 LLC. With all the lawsuits for the damages, he ended up losing that property that is in that LLC. He had a lot of equity in that building. But if you don't have equity, you have nothing to lose. So that is why you can pile up properties. But once those properties accumulate over $500,000 in equity, then you're exposing yourself to too much risk. Therefore, you're going to move them out into a new LLC. So it's equity driven, okay? So you should not create an LLC per property. No, it'll be a nightmare. However, go ahead, Sam.
I'm sorry. If you have 5 property, under 1 LLC, and somebody slip and falls, the lawyer will come after all 5 properties, not just that one that incident happened.
Yeah, so obviously you need to have an umbrella policy. So all those 5 properties, but think about this. If you have $50,000 in equity in those 5 properties, the most you're going to lose is $50,000, right? If you were to lose all 5 properties. But again, you always have to have an umbrella policy on top of all your property insurance. So that kicks in if you get sued. You need to have 1 entity for many properties. However, you need to have 1 checking account per property for accounting purposes. That's how you should do it, because then that's going to simplify accounting. That's how we have a lot of checking accounts. So like Diego and I, we have one checking account. So I can, on my phone, I can show him, hey, Diego, these are in fact, we did that a couple of weeks ago, right? We met up and I showed him, boom, check all the rent that is coming in. And in fact, we found out that $2,000 was deposited out of the sky. We had an excess of $2,000 in the account. We were able to trace that back to another property. So the property management company, by mistake, deposited $2,000 into our account, which was concerning, right? But anyway.
So it's good to have 1 main LLC and then 5 sub LLC, right?
No, you can have 1 LLC and then put properties or buy properties under that LLC. You don't need to have a series LLCs.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Keep things simple, no problem. Any other questions? Any comments?
Do you have a sample joint venture, Hugo, for what you just described about your deal?
Yeah,
In
of
the,
course.
okay.
We have them on the portal, Stan. Am I sharing my screen? Let me pull it up. I'm gonna pull it up. So for the deal makers, I'm sharing my screen. So under contracts, I have a joint venture template. Now, something that is very important, like in the case of Diego and myself, when he gave the money, the question is, how do you collateralize that money? How do you guarantee that that money has a collateral? There's got to be a mortgage, a note recorded. So he's got a first position lien on the property. It's not like I can go sell the property and cash out, right? No, he's got a first position lien on it. So let me see why it's taking so long. Diego, is that okay if I share our JV agreement with the group? Diego, are you still on the line? The template is not coming up, but let me show you what it looks like. Okay. Okay, and this is what it looks like. I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger for you guys to see. So party A, party B, then you put in the property address right here. And then let me make this bigger. Here. And then in here, you specify what the purpose of the venture is. Right here, the purpose. So the purpose of the property is number 3. Is repairing, renovating, and selling the property. Okay. And then first party, right? What are the responsibilities or contributions of the parties, right? Like for instance, first party shall contribute all monies needed for the purchase, repair, maintain, advertising, and so forth. So the money person. The second party, okay, shall be responsible for the management, renovation, marketing of the subject property for resale, okay? And then we're gonna have a checking account. It doesn't need to be joint, but it could be joint, that's optional, okay? So this is the total investment, $92,500. And then the distribution. So the distribution is how you split the proceeds. So let me see where the 50-50, there's going to be insurance on the property, and then there's going to be a first position lien on the property. You see the title, you specify who the property is deeded under. In this case, it's party B. And then these are their responsibilities, duties and responsibilities of each party. So it's in a nutshell, it's a very standard agreement. Let me see, and then we can give you this if you need this. But this is where you stipulate responsibilities and contributions of each party. So it's on the deal makers. For some reason on the contracts, it's just taking a while to load. Are there any questions so far on this? Did it make sense? Did it help you clarify other people's money and JVs?
Yes, it did.
Yeah, I got one going back a little bit, Hugo, which is when you're going to decide whose name is going to be on the deed. What do you do if one has better credit score and the other one has the better experience? Is there any
Go with the
process?
credit.
So the credit's the top priority.
Yeah, because
Okay,
otherwise, if you have a bad credit, you won't be able to refinance.
gotcha. Thanks.
Okay. Hey guys, we have a live event on Sunday, December 12th. It's we're gonna be talking about right here. It's gonna be live and virtual, so hopefully you can all make it. We're gonna be talking about goals, conclusions of 2021, and then we're going to be talking about the 22 crash or boom, right? How to position yourself for 2022, okay? It's going to have great information because it's going to help you position yourself for success in 2022, okay? So we're going to talk about obviously 2021, but most importantly, we're going to be focusing on what's coming 2022, and most importantly, what exactly do you need to do today to be successful in 2022? What's going to be important? What's going to be the driving factors for your success in 2022? It's going to be, in a nutshell, full of opportunities for 2022. So we're super, super excited to welcome 2022. So please make sure that you come or join virtually. I'm going to put the link on the chat so everyone comes in person. It's going to be very, very powerful. So hopefully you can all join next Sunday. Are there any other questions?
Do you mean this coming Sunday or next Sunday?
So Sunday the 12th, it's going to be in
12th.
Oakbrook Doubletree. So it's going to be really cool. We're going to do, this is how the day is going to look like. So we're going to have the meeting from 1 to 2 o'clock, 2:30. And then for those of you who are deal makers, we're going to do the potluck. Okay, so it's going to be so cool. Potluck starts at 3:30. So it's going to be full of surprises, prizes, networking, good food, drinks. So it's going to be awesome for those of you who are deal makers. Okay. If you have the chance, please come earlier to the 1 p.m. event. It's going to be very, very interesting. Great information we've compiled in the last month or so. So please make sure that you attend either virtually, preferably in person. Okay, nothing beats in person networking. So make sure that you RSVP. So it's going to be Doubletree Oakbrook Sunday 12 at 1 p.m. We're going to be in the ballroom conference room. So it's the largest room. When you enter the lobby, to the left, it's a beautiful conference room. Are there any other questions?
Hugo, I have a question. Whose name we put on the title or deed? Yeah. If, for example, me and you put 50,000 each and buy a property and sell it for 150,000, so there is a 50,000 gain or capital gain. So that will go directly to you because it's under your name, correct?
Right. But we have a joint venture in place and that gets recorded as well. So it wouldn't matter between you and I. If you put 50,000, I put 50,000, it doesn't matter because we're selling the property. But if we're to rent the property, then the person with the better credit, better track record will be on the deed, especially better credit. Because even if you have great experience, but you have bad credit, you know, that will really affect the refinance and the terms.
Of course. Yeah, and then I'm not responsible for the money you made, or you're not responsible for the money I made.
Right.
By that joint venture.
Correct. So if you guys need the JV agreement, we can send you the template. So send us an email to support@ChicagoDealVault, and we'll email you the template. If you're part of Deal Makers, it's on the portal. So let me quickly summarize. You've got to leverage from other people's money, okay? Either hard money lenders or private money lenders. It's critical. If you don't have experience, if you're a newbie, give up equity in exchange for for the money for the purchase and rehab. Again, it's better to have 25% of something than 100% of nothing. And then you're going to be in charge of bringing the deal and the rehab to make this a win-win. So again, you don't need to start doing wholesaling to be successful in real estate. You can jump straight into flips or rentals so long you bring the deal and the deal makes sense. Remember, you need about $80,000 to $100,000 spread for it to be a great deal. So thank you everyone for joining. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday at 1 p.m. And deal makers, make sure that you come for the potluck, 3:30. You can bring your family.
I have a question, Hugo.
Yes.
So for the potluck, did everybody sign up to say that they're gonna bring a specific item?
Good question. You guys can bring whatever you want, food, desserts, drinks, or if you don't want to bring anything, it's fine. What we care about is that you come and that you bring your family, your loved ones, your kids, whoever you want to bring. That'll be awesome. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of food. So
okay,
just make sure that you join. Okay, guys, so looking forward to seeing you all on Sunday at 1 p.m. live event. And if you're not able to come live, make sure that you join our webinar. Okay, we're going to live stream the live event. So looking forward to seeing you, everyone. Veronica said, I'm glad to give up more than 50% equity. Perfect. Yeah, that's the way to grow. Okay, so thank you, everyone. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. So have a wonderful evening, and thank you for joining tonight.
Thank you, Hugo.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. See you Sunday.